You've read the same page 3 times, and it goes down smooth now. You close the book feeling like you know it. That smooth feeling is the reason none of this learning survives the week. This has a name: desirable difficulties. The conditions that make learning feel easy are the ones that make it vanish, and the ones that feel like failure are the ones that hold. You think that feeling is understanding. It isn't. It's fluency. Familiarity wearing understanding's face. There is one more thing about that feeling, and it is not what you're expecting. The feeling isn't broken. It is measuring something real, and measuring it accurately. What it measures is the reason you keep losing everything you learn, and it is the point of this video. Look at what you actually did this week. Tuesday night. 40 minutes, a chapter you needed. You read it once, and almost nothing stuck, so you read it again with a highlighter. By the third pass, the sentences were arriving before you finished them. That was the moment you stopped, because that was the moment it felt done. Wednesday. A 19-minute video explaining something you have been meaning to understand for a year. You followed every step. You nodded at the part where it clicked. You did not pause once, and afterwards you would have called it the clearest explanation you had ever seen. Sunday afternoon. 3 hours on one topic, start to finish, no interruptions. The most productive block you'd had in a month. Then somebody asked you about it on Thursday, and you produced 4 words and a shrug. Nothing failed in any of that. Every one of those sessions worked exactly the way it was designed to work. The design just wasn't yours. Here is the thing your mind cannot do. It cannot look inside itself and see what is stored. There is no gauge, no dial, no readout telling you how much of that chapter is actually in there. So it does what any system does when the quantity it needs is invisible. It finds something it can measure and uses that instead. What it can measure is how easily something comes to mind right now. That is the substitution. Ease of access, standing in for depth of storage. And most of the time the two travel together, which is exactly why you have never caught the swap. Robert Burke gave the problem its name in 1994 in a chapter called Memory and Metamemory Considerations in the Training of Human Beings. His observation was almost too simple to publish. The conditions that produce the best performance while you are practicing are not the conditions that produce the best learning. The ones that help, he called desirable difficulties. The things that slow you down now and pay you back later. Look at what the evidence does to your Tuesday. In 2006, Henry Roediger and Jeffrey Karpik gave students prose passages to learn. One group studied them over and over. Another group studied once, then sat with a blank sheet and wrote down whatever they could recall. No feedback, just retrieval. Then everyone was tested again, some after 5 minutes, some after 2 days, some after a week. At 5 minutes, repeated study 1. Of course it did. That is your Tuesday night. At 1 week, it collapsed. The students who had tested themselves recalled 61% of the material. The rereaders recalled 40. But that is not the finding that should stop you. This is: repeated studying increased the students' confidence in their ability to remember it. The group about to lose the material was the group that felt best about it. The group that was going to keep it felt uncertain and inefficient and like they were doing it wrong. Now take Wednesday. In 2019, Louis Delorier and colleagues at Harvard ran introductory physics 2 ways. Identical content. Identical handouts. Students assigned at random. The passive lectures were delivered by experienced, highly rated instructors. This was not a rigged fight. One group sat and received. The other group worked. The active group learned more, measured on a test. The active group also reported that they felt like they had learned less. The researchers traced that gap in part to the extra cognitive effort the active students had to spend. The work is what produced the learning. The work is also what produced the sense of not learning. 2 outputs of the same input, pointing in opposite directions. Something in you wants to insist that effort feels like value, that if it was hard, it must have counted. Justin Kruger and colleagues found a version of that in 2004. People rated a poem, a painting, and a suit of armor as better when they believed each had taken longer to make. It got called the effort heuristic, and pre-registered replications since have come back mixed, so hold it loosely. And it points the wrong way for you anyway. Kruger's participants were judging somebody else's finished object. When you are judging your own learning while it is happening, the arrow flips. Effort does not feel like progress. Effort feels like struggling, and struggling feels like failing. So what is that feeling actually? It isn't a malfunction. It never was. It is an instrument, it is accurate, and it is reading a real quantity. It is simply not reading the quantity you care about. Bjork's framework splits memory into two separate things. Storage strength is how deeply something is embedded. Retrieval strength is how easily it comes to you at this exact moment. They are not the same number, and they do not move together. Your feeling of knowing is a retrieval strength readout. It is honest. It is telling you the truth about right now. Picture watering a plant. Water it a little every day and the surface stays damp, so the roots never have to go anywhere. They stay near the top, where the water is easy. Water it deeply and then leave it alone long enough to dry out, and the roots are forced downward looking for it. The first method looks better every single day. The second one survives a hot week. Your learning has roots, and the smooth feeling is surface water, which gives you a shorter way to say this, one you can actually remember. Smooth means shallow. And here is the part that rearranges everything you have heard so far. Under the conditions that matter, those two quantities move in opposite directions. Something that arrives effortlessly is not strengthened by arriving. Something you have to dig for gains storage strength from the digging itself. The struggle is not a tax on the learning. The struggle is the learning, which means the feeling is not merely unreliable. When it is loudest, it is most reliably wrong. Every time you feel that click, you are being told the thing came easily, and told, in the same breath, that nothing was built. That is why you cannot fix this by paying closer attention to it. The machine has no storage sensor because building one would cost more than it could ever return. A mind that could directly inspect its own contents would need a second system auditing the first, and a third auditing that one. What it has instead is a shortcut that is right often enough to be worth having, and wrong in exactly the situation that did not use to exist. The situation where you sit down deliberately, on purpose, for 1 hour, to load something into a mind that was never built to be loaded on a schedule. This is not a flaw. It is a specification. And the specification is fine everywhere except the one place you now spend your evenings. Which is why every habit that feels like learning has the same shape underneath it. Rereading raises retrieval strength and touches nothing else. Watching a good explanation raises it too. That is what a good explainer does. It makes the material fluent for you. And fluency is precisely the thing you cannot trust. Studying one topic in one long block raises it, which is why massed practice beats spacing in the room and loses to it afterwards, as Nicholas Cepeda and colleagues found reviewing decades of studies in 2006. 20 problems of the same type in a row raises it, which is why Doug Rohrer and Kelly Taylor found in 2007 that shuffling the problem types makes practice worse and the test better. Copying notes down raises it, and Norman Slameka and Peter Graf showed back in 1978 that a word you generate yourself is remembered better than the same word handed to you. 5 habits. 1 mechanism. All 5 maximize the number you can feel and leave the number that matters untouched. So use the instrument backwards. Here is the diagnostic, and it takes 90 seconds. Close whatever you were reading. From an empty page, say the thing out loud. Not recognize it. Produce it. The distance between what you were certain you had and what actually comes out of your mouth is your storage strength, and you have never once measured it before. Then flip each habit. Read it once, then recall it. Pause the video and predict the next step before it is shown to you. Split the 3 hours across 3 days. Shuffle the problem types. Leave gaps in your notes and fill them in tomorrow. Every one of those will feel worse than what you were doing. That is not a side effect you put up with. That is the receipt. You've read the same page 3 times, and it goes down smooth now. Nothing is wrong with you, and nothing is wrong with the feeling. It is reading the surface, honestly, exactly as it was built to. The roots are just somewhere else, and they only go down when you let it get dry.